With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
The big question many fans had at one point was simple. Is this heaven? No, this is Iowa Speedway. Tonight, the top drivers of the Lionheart Racing Series in its IndyCar Series look to conquer this Iowa-based facility. It's Newton, Iowa, and it's the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI. Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's coverage here on RaceSpotTV and ESTV for the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra comfortable Cloud9 gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Jonathan Burke as we head into our Butt Kicker pre-race show, along with the producer Tyler Maxson, for what's expected to be an intriguing night here from Iowa. It's been an intriguing season to say the very least coming into tonight. As drivers get themselves all situated and ready to go, let's take a look at your next level racing schedule so far. Where it's been an eventful schedule. We start the second half of the season tonight here in Iowa. Jonathan.
Yeah, second half of the season begins here on a short oval, and this is an unpredictable short oval, especially in this series. We've had no repeat winners. Only one driver has been on the podium twice in this series. So this is a good way, I think, to kick off the second half of the season. And we start on like this little Midwest road stop. We have Iowa, Road America, Michigan, and Gateway, all tracks that have great racing in them.
Lots to talk about when it comes to how the season's been playing out. Let's take a look at your driver standings in turn, presented by Butt Kicker. And to put it simply, Philip Kraus has been electrifyingly quick. 8 wins, 11 top 5s, 11 top 10s, 232 points the advantage, nearly 2 full races plus already when you factor in the Triple Crown event to close out the season. It's going to be tough to reel in Philip Kraus throughout this season, especially if you're Alexander Van der Sande, Caleb Bensi, Adam Blocker, and Matt Taylor. The rest of your top 5 of the point standings separated by 334 points entering tonight's race. Let's take a look at your team standings presented by HyperX, private label Team Hype. They've been leading the point standings. They've been hyped up all season. They've lived up to it. Power Slide Adrenaline looked to power slide up the standings, though, with Synergy Motorsports Silver about 1,600 points behind, with MadWorks Motorsports rounding out the top 4. Power Slide Ignition recovering as well, Jonathan. It's been an incredible season for private label Team Hype, a brand that started up a few years ago and has built itself up to try and build another team title.
And when you have such good and consistent drivers that are in this series, and then you add to that with what Philip Kraus has brought to the table in this season, they look like the favorites. But Power Slide Adrenaline, like, they have some really good drivers as well. Alexander Van der Sande has impressed this season, and of course Adam Blocker has been a big name throughout the IndyCar community. So I wouldn't count Power Slide Adrenaline out yet, but something does need to happen, I think, in order for them to catch Philip Kraus on the individual championship side.
Don't forget there's been a strong rookie class, too, with the Butt Kicker rookie standings. You see how Philip Kraus, mind you, a rookie in this series, has paired out. Mind you, though, there have been other noteworthy rookies, too. Adrian Pinheiro's been lightning quick in qualifying to the ovals this season. Alexis Newsom, of course, picking up some successful runs, to say the very least, over the past few weeks, especially with the Triple Crown races. Mitchell Riggs has been quietly making a comeback as well, Jonathan.
And this is one of the great things about this series is you get this mix of rookie drivers that have that experience running in the official series that are now coming over and running with teams that have been here since the dawn of this series. So it's going to be interesting to see like how some of these rookies play out. And look at where like these rookies also compare to the actual standings. Your top 3 are the top 3 in the rookie standings as well.
It just showcases the talent coming into the series absolutely for this season. But let's transition over to your series details presented by GSI. As tonight, we start off the second half of the season, as mentioned, custom fixed setups built by Andrew Kinsella in the Dallara IR18. Remember, cash and prizes throughout the season, $10,600 up for grabs throughout the season. And it's been a different type of season because last year, remember, Adam Blocker continued to be the king of Lionheart coming into this week. Not so much this year with how the tempo has been, Jonathan.
No, and you can argue that right now Philip Kraus has kind of been the king of this season. Again, we've mentioned the 8 wins, but he's been dominant on both sides of the spectrum, whether you go to the road courses or the oval. And not to say Blocker hasn't been impressive either. I mean, he's got the second most top 5s in the series still. It's just he needs to go catch down Philip Kraus. And it's going to be, I think, a hard task, I think, for him to defend his championship now with such a big gap developing.
Let's take a look at your event details brought to you by Moser Racing, where it's the 10th time in series history we're the fastest short track on the planet. Just twice the pole position has converted to a HyperX victory lane victory. But the main storyline we were talking about, Jonathan, was Connor Harrington, the all-time lead laps leader here at this facility at 232 in series history. He's yet to win here at this track.
Yeah, yet to win here at this track, and he's led the most laps the season prior to last season, as well as in season 7. He's been impressive here. He just needs to put that run together at the end. And one noteworthy point about him leading most laps in those races, those were also laps where we had a lot of yellow flags and a lot of trouble that happened. If this goes green and Harrington is towards the front, he is going to be a threat, but he can't get caught up in trouble.
And remember, with those cautions, anything can happen, whether it's the potential of up to 9, that's happened twice, or just 2 last season, where 3 drivers finished on the lead lap. The lowest total of drivers on the lead lap, worth noting, just 2. And that was back when George Anzaldo picked up a victory years ago in season 3. Defending race winner, Robert Malechka III, who was amongst those 3, along with Newsom and Kraus, who picked up those top 3 finishes on the lead lap. So lots to talk about in turn for Iowa tonight. Lots of hype to build up after tonight. For tonight, as the halfway point of the season brings us under the lights, and this facility, as talked about just moments ago, has built up a lot of hype as a result of its partnerships in the real world for its doubleheader weekend in IndyCar competition. Millions poured into that event weekend just recently, in fact, with concerts and fans having, as described by some reporters, including by SI.com's Auto Racing Digest, is this heaven? It's a race fan's heaven. It can be here.
And it's honestly one of the most fun tracks to drive as well as a driver, whether you're in the stock car or an Indy car. In the Indy car, it's a quick oval. You have to have fast reaction times, but it's not as simply you can mash the throttle down and it'll stick. There is a lot of treacherous parts on this racetrack, and there's going to be a lot of action, especially on the exits of these corners. Turn 2 and turn 4, I think, are going to be the places where drivers are going to get caught out.
Drivers moments away for the end of their practice session. Preparation for tonight, Philip Kraus, the quickest driver in practice, but Jason Brophy, Robert Malechka III, Adam Blocker, Connor Harrington, the top 5, 16.795, that benchmark. But remember, track position is critical here, because in qualifying, when it comes to being able to get to clean air early on, it has tended to lead to the leader being able to dictate the pace throughout the race at the short tracks with this Dallara IR18. So qualifying, exceptionally important. 3 of the past visits here seen the pole sitter win the race.
And that's going to be key, I think, for the top half of the field to really get away from all the trouble it is of everyone on top of each other, especially early on, and just pace themselves and pace out this race. And again, there's 33 cars on this short oval. Justin, if there is trouble, it's going to be 10th on back, where there's not going to be a lot of room and margin for error.
So qualifying is underway for our drivers here at this facility which there's never been the repeat winner. Philip Kraus looks to try and add his name to that prestigious winning category, and it's been an electrifying season. The man has built a lot of houses in HyperX Victory Lane this season, to say the very least. 17.4 to start things off. The second lap expect to be the big one for the 19.
Interesting to note, like, the different lines he was taking on that first lap. He was high on that first lap, and then this lap he came all the way down to the bottom.
And that's able to get him to the top of the board over Robert Malechka III by at least 5 100ths or so. Tony Shaw and Alex Gouillon amongst the top 4 currently early on in this session. And the tough thing about this track too is with the aero wash, you have to search for lines, Jonathan, and keep in mind this is a multi-groove racetrack with the various different seams and bumps.
And that's what makes it, like, really fun to drive, like, as one of these racers in here, is that you have to go find not only the clean air but the grip to make a move and to keep your car out of trouble. And I love that we saw 2 different lines on the qualifying lap too. We saw one very high line and one low line, and here we are on board right now. You're getting that high line in 3 and 4, low line in 1 and 2, and now he's going to go low, maximize the amount of time, or like minimize the amount of time spent on the track, and across the line goes Harrington. And probably not the lap he was looking for.
Harrington, keep in mind, 1 time on the pole here at this facility. Following along with Andrew Kinsella, Senate builder for the Lionheart Racing Series. Power Slide Adrenaline is his team. keeping up with some of the momentum he's built up recently. Keep in mind, he's done well here in the past, a second place, in fact, back in Season 5. And
that's a mistake.
So Andrew Kinsella crashes in qualifying, was in 17th at the time of the incident. And that's going to be the major thing, too. Making sure you don't slam into these walls on corner exit. Could be tricky for some.
And that was just a simple mistake of he was just trying to let the car flow through that corner and get back to the throttle as quickly as he can. But he didn't want to lift out of that corner. You can see how close they're getting to that outside wall in turn 2. And unfortunate for Kinsella, that's a... Oh, there goes Van der Sande.
Van der Sande spins it out into the outside wall in 3 and 4, and that may cost the 96 a chance at decent track position early on in this race. Remember, with the various pit strategies and cautions, though, we may see a lot of switching throughout the pack when it comes to our tire strategies. In part, we've seen winners come from 15th, 24th, 11th in the past, as Paul Jenkins finishes up qualifying just outside the top 10. Yet to set times, Matt Taylor, Aaron Morgan, Matt Wagner, Adriano Pinheiro, Lionel Callisto, Tyler Graff, Matt Houston to serve an EOL tonight.
If I'm not mistaken, did Van der Sande not cross the line and set an official time?
This is now the official time, but it's dead last. The first lap was the crash, was able to reset, but the tough thing is for Van der Sande, he'll start at the back. Less than minutes ago, and no other drivers have hit the track for qualifying for the rest of this session. So it looks like things have closed out, Jonathan, as we get ready for an action-packed night under the lights.
And going to be the biggest thing is going to be seeing who's going to be the movers and shakers from that mid-pack up to the front, and then how fast can the top 5 really gap themselves away before they're going to catch lap traffic. Because again, we got 33 cars on this small little track. They're going to catch lap traffic quickly. Underline that word, quickly.
And that will be huge for the battle for the race lead as the night goes on. Remember, we've seen some decent leads built up here. Then you reach that traffic within that 16 seconds a lap. Boom. The lead compresses, and that's where it gets interesting with those who are able to deal with that aero wash you're referring to. Qualifying just about over for our drivers here tonight. And in turn, we have 33 starters all set to take the grid here from Iowa Speedway on iRacing here in virtual Newton, Iowa. It's time to take a look at how our drivers will start for tonight's action here at Iowa for the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI. Your butt kicker starting grid as Philip Kraus starts on the pole once again with Adam Blocker to his outside. Row 2 is Robert Wetchka III and Alexis Newsome, followed in row 3 by Michael O'Brien, and Kite Bombers back with one of his best starts of 2022. Connor Harrington starts in 7th tonight with a 16-9. Luis Gonzalez Nunez with a strong season starts in 8th. Adam Frazier and Jason Brophy round out the top 10. The King of Chins, Joshua Chin, starts in 11th with Bradley Sexton in good track position 12th. Matthias Kraus starts 13th with Paul Jenkins back in 14th. Tony Shalwin for Power Slide Ignition in 15th. Alex Guyon in 16th with AJ Musselman. And Andrew Marquez rounding out the top 18. Gil Bensi deep in the field. He's had good history here, though. We'll see if the 29 can cut through the pack, along with Ryan Otis. Stefan Larkamp starts 21st with Mike Rigney in 22nd. Andrew Kinsella after his crash in the second lap of qualifying 23rd with James Brandt. Rounding out the top 24, James Brandt should say. Brian Beard starts 25th and the last driver in qualifying, Alexander Van der Sande, after a crash on lap 1 of his run. Those not setting times include Adriano Pinheiro, Lionel Callisto, Matt Houston with the EOL, Matt Taylor, Matt Wagner, Aaron Morgan, Tyler Graff. Once again, that'll roll us through to our starting grid for tonight's action, presented by Butt Kicker. With that, the drivers are just about all set to go for tonight's action, as it's time to take a look at your featured onboard cameras for tonight's action. First, we have Matt Taylor, who'll be driving with the Moser Racing on board for this evening's action here at Iowa. Tonight, with the Butt Kicker on board, was to be Ron Hacker. Tony Schauer will have the Next Level Racing on board. Either way, Caleb Bensi will have the HyperX on board as well for tonight's action. Plenty of onboard cameras throughout the pack. Those are your featured onboard cameras for tonight. But Jonathan, your keys to victory here at this very fast short track.
Rule number one, you're going to have to stay out of trouble. It is short track racing. There's not going to be a lot of room for error. And staying out of trouble and keeping it clean, that's going to be one of the biggest keys. And rule number two, you got to be in the right place at the right time. If you pit too early and a caution comes out, you're all the way at the end of the field. So you got to be mindful of your tire strategy and your fuel strategy, especially if we get longer green flag runs. You have to always be wary of that yellow flag.
So one more pace lap before we get rolling here for tonight's action. As the drivers get all buckled up and ready to go, it's worth noting Matt Wagner amongst those who will be starting at the very tail end with a new look tonight, throwing back to one of the Penske Racing paint schemes. We'll take a look at that and more as this night progresses. Who do you think's got this, though, is the question, because as we've seen, Iowa can be a bit of a roulette when it comes to strategy.
It can be a roulette when it comes to strategy. It can be a roulette when it comes to winners and podium place finishers. So you can bet, I think, a reasonable chance in any one of these 33 cars right now. We have to wait and see how this develops.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. And this is the start of the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI. The field in the hands of Philip Kraus. The green flag waves were underway from Iowa. In a very super quick first lap for Philip Kraus, the clean air helps. Philip Kraus built up nearly 0.6 of a second the advantage over top Adam Blocker. Most of the pack already single file as they try the multiple groups in 3 and 4.
They can see a lot of guys in that midfield trying to use that high line, trying to use that momentum they have from that curved front stretch to really make a move going down the back stretch. But right now, just the fact that the top 10 single file out so quickly, that's really hampering their progress.
It's the Pied Piper, still the king of chins, looking towards the heart of the pack. Luis Gonzalez Nunez amongst those playing defense. Keep in mind that 1 and 2, noticed a couple times, drivers really trying to attack those bumps at the bottom of the track. The problem is, well, it's the bumpiest part of the racetrack for a reason at that end of the speedway.
And this is a good time right now to abuse that, at least when you have fresh tires, when you have full fuel, when you have that weight of the car able to keep you down there. But as these cars get lighter and as these tires start getting worn, it's going to become riskier and riskier to run that bottom. You can see the view right now from Kaito Bamagash. He's trying to find a way around Newsom, at least into the corners, but I think right now he's just pacing himself a little bit, understanding that, you know what, it's early in a 200-plus lap race, I can't overtake him.
Bombers back indeed, trying to run the different lines. You see him just searching for the clean air. That's very critical here. And if you don't find the clean air, well, you get brought under attack, such as Connor Harrington trying to make the move underneath Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Not able to complete it. And passing in turn takes a lot of time, Jonathan, to set up properly.
It takes a lot of time. It can also, lose you a lot of time, especially if you guys end up side by side on the straightaway. All of a sudden the draft is broken and you can lose that front car. And there's another look to the inside. Gets a nose in, but nothing much more on that occasion.
Still continuing to poke around towards the bottom of the racetrack this time. Nunez riding into the third line, nearly to the wall, as Harrington nearly slammed to the side pod with the momentum.
Yeah, Nunez, I don't think can ride that line for much, much longer. I think we're going to see probably some fall off with the tires, at least around lap 10, lap 15. So Nunez is going to have to start backing out of it come the exit. And Harrington is going to want to clear him quickly, too. They don't want to lose O'Brien and lose the draft.
They're trying to run the very bottom of the racetrack, not able to clear on by yet again. They've lost a few car lengths in turn with this early battle. Jason Brophy also in the mixture of things. Remember, experience as an eNASCAR crew chief and builder. It's been an up and down season for the greenish yellow private label team Hype Machine, but currently watching the wings at his strength ovals.
And this is going to be a good way to try and make up some points in some of those teammates and try and get into the top 5 in the point standings. He's got 3 top 5s this season, 4 top 10s. So, it's not like he's had a, bad season, but just as you said, up and down, wanting to get closer to the front and closer to this battle.
Still keeping up, in fact, as Harrington still is trying to find a way to clear on by. And based on your experience, how do you complete the pass in the midst of dirty air such as this and the aero wash without, getting involved in an incident? Because these cars don't like contact, let's put it that way.
You really have to trust in yourself that you are giving yourself enough space, and you really have to time it right with the draft that you're getting down the straightaways. Right now, Harrington, he's really not close enough coming into 1 or 3 to get alongside Nunez and really pull himself down that straightaway next to him. He's just getting a nose there. He really needs to get a big run out of 4 or 2 and really time it. Like Brophy right here was able to get alongside before the corner, and Brophy might be able to pick off Harrington.
So the rhythm continuing on. You see also side by side building up Frazier and Chin, worth noting. So a few drivers are trying to make moves here, including Chin. The thing is, as you can see, here's the downside. You have a third party in this, lose the outside, there goes Matthias Kraus to jump up.
And it seems like Nunez and Chin are both on that outside, and both don't seem to be handling as well as they want to, and they seem to be under fire from 2 different drivers, as here comes Harrington again on the inside of Nunez. I wonder how much, tired he is of hearing inside.
That's a good question with the tire, where how big will that be in terms of trying to make sure you don't burn up your stuff? By the time we get to the end of the pit window, the projection is 56 to 58 today.
Especially if he's sitting on that outside and Nunez is pushing. He's not trying to save anything right now, trying to keep that position. His track position is important, so he's going to burn up those tires quickly. And same with Harrington. Like, he's diving all the way down to the bottom. He's abusing those bumps. They're both going to lose out big. And the passive one right now, Brophy may be able to capitalize later on in the run.
Staying within a rhythm, keep in mind the race lead is by 1.2 seconds or so for Kraus over Blocker. Things staying calm for the most part throughout this pack so far, but mini packs are starting to form. 2nd through 4th are broken up. This pack has stayed fairly close. And then you have 3 wide, where Alexander Van de Sande is among the few making moves in the midst of the traffic. So far, Van de Sande is on the prowl, up 7 positions if he can complete this pass on Ryan Otis.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the most interesting thing to watch right now, is can Van de Sande make his way through the field before the pit stops come? So, and obviously the answer is yes, he can. Now the question is, how fast can he do it? He's kind of stuck right now behind Bensi, but Bensi almost gets out of the way all the way to the bottom. So Van de Sande has the preferred line, is able to get around and might have some clean air.
There it is there with the clean air. In fact, yes. Able to drive around Bensi and now picks up a little draft from Musselman, though. So up another spot goes the 96. Ryan Otis, though, struggling to try and defend a little bit. It's a hornet's nest behind. Kinsella's trying to get around. Piniero's trying to get around. Jay Brandt trying to get around on the high side near to the wall.
He had to get out of it and go all the way to the bottom. And the nice thing about Iowa is we got these long straightaways, so you have a little bit of time to catch yourself and lift and be able to regain it. But a mistake middle of the corner, there's not really much to go. It's going to be 3 wide again. He's looking to the outside. I'm sorry, there's not enough room out there, buddy.
Yeah, that's going to be tough today, is making sure you don't drift up into those drivers up top. This is around the time where cautions last year started to pop up a little bit, in the previous year especially, when this tire wear starts to really hit its worst with some of the tight conditions.
And you can see like what is becoming the preferred line now is that high side. Pinheiro has lost 4 spots already, and he's going to lose another one now. Really struggling to find a rhythm. And you said it, this is a rhythm track, and if you get out of rhythm and you get off your preferred line, you are going to lose a ton of spots.
Meanwhile, up the road, Nunez now under attack by Jason Brophy. Of note, Harrington has jumped to the next pack with this. Brophy struggling with the same situation Harrington was before. Not as easy to clear unless you get confidence like that.
Yeah, Brophy just had the confidence to get that move done, but I think Nunez is really now struggling for tire wear. And Harrington's still on the offensive. He's caught O'Brien. He's trying to get into the top 5, I think, before we hit the pit stops. But it looks like O'Brien is going to be a bit of a tougher customer.
Yeah, O'Brien not backing down and hoping that that side of the car doesn't come into fruition with the word crash on the side of it for tonight. Harrington inside, cannot round his way around the bottom still as they nearly lose touch to Kite Bommersbach, who continues to have a career best 5th run early.
It's very lonely 5th place for Bommersbach, unfortunately. He's the second behind Newsom, but he's a second ahead of this, so he's got clean track, and if we hit green flag pit stops, that might be the best blessing that 37 could get.
Exactly, and the more you fight, as you mentioned, more time you lose. They lost a 10th last time by O'Brien into the wall. Here comes Harrington to take advantage to move up to the 6th spot.
Yeah, now you got to think about what damage is there to that car and that aero. Has he lost a lot of that side downforce? Because even though it looked like a very minor hit, just the tires to the outside wall, you can really, really mess up the aero. And you get a meatball flag for him, too.
So the damage has been mandatory, or ruled mandatory by the sim, the 45 in. Meanwhile, we look behind them. There's the split screen with the pit stop. Musselman is losing ground. He's lost the top. Kinsella and Brandt zipping by on the outside there.
Yeah, Brandt's right now showing no fear because he's wanting to stick that nose anywhere he can find clean air or some traction. Is that Newsom going slowly or down pit road?
Oh, there's a car in the grass. Yes, Newsom has crashed down the front stretch. The factory back machine is not in range to trigger a caution, though. We stay green.
That's a tough break because he was running well into the top 5 and had a really solid day going after that good qualifying run, too.
She indeed did until it appears a major technical issue may have came into play there. The 96, meanwhile, of Van de Sant has already cut his way to the battle for 11th with Paul Jenkins. Remember, Van de Sant did not qualify in this race. Or qualify well, should say.
Yeah, but now the question is, how much of his tires has he used and abused? I mean, he's got, what are we talking about, another 15, 20 laps, I think, on these tires, so he's going to have to either just defend any more hard chargers that have been conserving behind him or just kind of be content in 11th. It's going to be a hard task to close, and that, I think, was someone almost in the wall. That might have been Kraus.
That was a little tight indeed, but still falling back is Musselman. Once those in this back grouping train, and part of the reason this is significant, this pack, not just some of the contenders back here trying to rip the wall. How about the race leader? Because Kraus is right at the back of this train, and this is not a good scene that you're seeing 2 and 3 wide if you're the race leader.
I mean, it's a great scene if he wants some entertainment. I mean, he might be a little bit bored with that 1-second lead right now, but don't think he wants Adam Blocker closing him down. And you can already see, like, even this little bit of aero wash affects him in the corners. He loses about a 10th or 2 to Blocker each lap, and that's a car way outside, losing 3 or 4 spots.
Pinheiro Munsto's having a big time lift. Brandt losing tons of ground as well. Mandatory repairs now for Brandt as a result of troubles down off that corner. So a third driver has had to pull towards the pit lane here.
What is being called as mandatory? Is it the right? It must be like the back toe or something to do with the aero that gets knocked out just enough to where you get that meatball flag. So I think that's another warning to anyone who wants to get close to that wall. Like, hey, you might get meatballed, which is even worse, I think, than the damage. Because then you have to go down, repair it, and lose 3 or 4 laps.
Hearing from O'Brien specifically, a quick statement. It's a 6-minute repair if you scrape the wall tonight. So keep that in mind for some of the traffic this evening as we take a look at Kinsella and Pinheiro for 18th.
Yeah, Kinsella had a poor qualifying effort trying to move through the field, and Pinheiro's just trying to hang on for dear life at the moment.
Also trying to hold on. Amongst those is Larkamp, Kalisto, Beard, right in front of the race leader yet again.
Yeah, Kraus, he's gotten the benefit of the draft now to close up to them, but now he's going to have the deficit of, well, they're all fighting for position to stay on the lead lap, and he's not. So we're going to see how quickly he can dispatch of this traffic. It's going to be difficult, especially with the aero wash, and even there, like, he had a window, and it closed up very quickly.
See the battling going on. Tyler Graf now trying to sort things out. Matt Taylor, one of the top drivers in the points, known for usually cutting his way through traffic, has not been able to do anything. Now sees it go 3 wide. And a big checkup in turn. Philip Kraus nowhere to go quite yet in the midst of this as he tries to run the bottom in this.
Yeah, this is where it's going to really hurt Kraus because there's 2 or 3 groups that are side by side in this back half of the pack, and really no one's going anywhere. The top side's holding ground and the bottom side's holding ground. I think now when they single file out a little bit, Kraus has a chance. But they all, like, these guys also see Kraus behind him. They know, like, hey, we need to go and pick up spots because if a yellow comes out, we'll be on the lead lap still and we can come and pit and maybe reset this. That was close. Jeez.
Bit of contact there as Beard loses ground, gets a lap down in turn. Next one up, Matt Taylor. Phil Kraus stuck in the aero wash, 4/10 lost alone in that one corner.
Yeah, you can see that number 1 car just slowly coming into the picture. There it is in that background, that blue number 1. Now Kraus has a bit more time gain here because I think that was the biggest fight that he had to get past right there with Beard and Taylor. Now Larkamp and Kalisto side by side, and that's not going to be productive for his day.
And now it gets interesting because we're just about at the green flag pit stop window. It's been green the whole way so far, a very quick night. See the next group up for the race leader. Amongst them, Ryan Otis, Lionel Kalisto, Andrew Marquez trying to sort themselves out here.
And now Kraus is getting to the point where some of these guys are running just a few tenths maybe faster than him, so it's going to be even more difficult. And I saw, like, right before we cut to the other camera angle, Kraus almost got cut off before he was able to make a move around the lapped car. So he's going to be extra capable. Blocker's actually lost a spot in this traffic.
Yeah, you see that swapping on the pylon right now in the midst of the aero wash right behind this pack. Robert Malechka III has reeled back in Blocker and has a chance to make some passes here. Trying the outside, the defending race winner here at Iowa just can't get the boost yet around Blocker.
He's got a good opportunity though right here. There's 2 or 3 cars side by side, and there's going to be a lot of wash on that one. You can see it dance its way up the hill, and that's a big run for the 91.
And a slide in from Malechka III to clear, yes. Move Robert Malechka III up to second. And the run continues to see forward progression here tonight. Amongst all this, 2 seconds back of the leader. The next pack's featuring a Hornet's Nest. Amongst them, Beard on the bottom, Larkamp on the top, Graf on the bottom. Wagner tried the middle there, running in that different-looking 3 machine tonight.
And this is where Malechka and Blocker are going to get frustrated because these 4 have been fighting for position for the past 10 laps, and they're not going to give up in this fight. So Malechka could lose even more time, and that pass already cost him about a second on Kraus.
See, Matt Wagner amongst those backing off, one of the top contenders in Speedway competition. But the pit stop window has been ring-a-ding-ding opened. Musselman, you see on the bottom of the track as these drivers pass by. As amongst those peeling on in. So we now expect the stops to start, and this was the talking point. How much further would the window extend with the traffic? And we've seen it already extend an additional 2 laps.
And how far are you willing to go with these worn tires? We saw Musselman was dropping like a rock through the field. So like that makes sense for him to be one of the first cars down there. And I think some of these guys in the mid-pack who think the undercut is strong. It is a very strong here at Iowa. 2 or 3 laps in clean air on fresh tires, you can make up about 4 to 5 seconds. So I think as one comes in, you're going to see a lot of them come in.
Tony Shalin on board with the NLR on board. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com. You see several drivers indicating pits or coming towards the pit lane at least. We're trying to set themselves up to do so. That's the tough thing, is trying to find that pocket, right? To be able to come in, you have to come in down the back straightaway off to turn 3. You can't dive it from the banking to turn 4.
Now, and Kraus found himself a good little hole there in between the lap traffic to get in. So your leaders in, blockers in, Brophy's in. Interesting to see the 91 and 44 stay out. And the one guy that I really like the strategy for, Bomberback in the 37, came in a lap early, might be able to jump a position here and get into the top 3.
It's only 3 seconds back of Kraus and company as up on the jacks go the drivers. See some of the drivers who are laps down starting to roll their way through or towards the back of the pack, but already clear is Kraus, already clear is Blocker. Blocker, though, having to come out with some of the drivers they were trying to lap, including Ryan Otis.
That seemed like a slow stop for Blocker compared to, like, they were only 2 seconds apart, and woo, that's a little dicey there, Bomberback, and on that bottom line.
Scariato Sport Machine diving to the bottom of the racetrack. Did not cycle in front of Brophy or in front of Blocker. This time, though, trying to pass, but the problem is traffic in front. It's Ryan Otis.
He might be able to get him going into the entrance of the corner, but Otis is just right in that middle.
There's the diamond. There's the pass. Brophy gets a spot back. Otis not making it easy to clear on by him, though, as the 28th place car. Rest of the leaders you see on the pylon are ducking in to complete this window. It's Kraus, Molechka the third, Blocker, Bombers back, Brophy, how they cycle in the net top 5 here. Not expected to cycle fully this time around, as they will.
So even though...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, even though Bomberback and Brophy ended up fighting each other a little bit, they made up a good 2 or 3 seconds on those top 3 for those two pitting a lap early. So that the undercut, again, proving to be strong. It's just Ryan Otis in the way, and these two fighting might hamper a little of their success, because they can see the top 3. Blocker and Molechka are just right around the corner, and here comes Brophy again to the inside.
This is a battle for the top 4. Bombers back has been running inside the top 5 since the start of the race for Ascari. Brophy trying to keep the 4 progression as he gained time throughout the pit cycle despite a 2-lap overcut compared to what the 37 did.
This is one of the reasons, like, you have to love Iowa, is that you can have these different strategies, because normally, again, I'd say the undercut, very powerful here, especially on fresh tires, but Brophy, when everyone else was pitting, ran some clean laps in clean air, got a good in-lap, and was able to gain time as well. So both strategies working in their favor, because they gained time in the leaders, they just happened to both end up in the same place.
So plenty of traffic for the race leaders to deal with. The lead is up to about 2 seconds. Some of the others battling, though, is for 12. Paul Jenkins, Adriel Pinheiro. Pinheiro, remember, started 27th. Good strong pull through the traffic so far for the 56, who's been someone who's been in the conversation for a couple wins, but hasn't necessarily had the luck in his starts.
And I think this is going to be a phase that really helps him out, because you saw him charging through the field early, and then towards the end of that run, he was really struggling for grip and losing some of those positions he gained. Now as the field is kind of spread out, there's a decent amount of cars a lap down. Now it's going to be easier for Pinheiro to charge through the field on these fresh tires, conserve a little bit, get to the end of the stint, and then make another charge again.
He's already gained about 6-7 car lengths at least on Paul Jenkins. The next driver behind, the HyperX onboard camera in the midst of some of the traffic. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. We know Bensi, when it comes to short tracks in his career, has always been ready to perform, but tonight just hasn't had the track position.
No, and I think strategy is going to be a key for this 29 to really get into some good track position, because right now you're in this mid-pack. We have a lot of hard chargers and a lot of guys that are good on their short runs, and they're going to be fading back. So right now I think he's going to hold station here, try and get around Jenkins. I mean, the good part about like 8th through 14th right now, they're pretty spread out. You can manage and run. You don't have to worry about getting lapped yet by Kraus.
Now it's worth noting that with how things played out that strategy window for most drivers, that may be a good sign for them to get to the end. One of the things we were discussing is if you went to the 56 part of the range, Jonathan, each time around, you may need an extra stop as it'd be short by 5 laps. But with these projections right now, based on some of the traffic, we might see these drivers for sure get the 3-stop in, if not close.
Oh, I think for sure they're going to be able to get the 3-stop in. I think the only ones that might be at risk are the ones that stopped on 57, 58, that had to pit early feeling like they needed to come down and get new tires. They might be at risk later on if they have to come down early. But again, when you're talking a 3-stop strategy, 2 or 3 laps added to the window now, extends it further down the line, and they're going to be about 2 or 3 laps safe if we stay green.
Seeing Tony Schauwen crawl into the picture, by the way, in the midst of this fight. Again, this busy battle currently for the 13th position. These are the drivers at the tail end of the lead lap yet again, by the way. And that's going to be a major battle yet again for Philip Kraus to try and get around quickly. Tony Schauwen, aero wash. Big boost for Bensi for the backstretch into 3.
Able to gather her up out of 4, though, and that's going to be like one of the key things. You can't make mistakes in multiple corners. And here comes Brophy. He's on a hard charge right now. Blocker's caught a lot of traffic. And Jason Brophy may be trying to get into the podium places.
Connor Harrington closing in as well as Bomberbacks drop back. Here comes Brophy on the outside. Stuck with the aero wash, though, of 2 different cars as Blocker used the bottom to be able to get some separation.
I think the trouble for both of them is both those 2 lap cars are running in the lines those 2 want to run. So they're both trying to find a different line. Right now, Blocker going all the way to the bottom. And that does not seem like where that one car is comfortable.
This is all while the race leader is stuck in similar traffic with those battling up in front of them. Kraus runs the second line this time. Outside group setting up as Bensi pulls away from it. Now around Tony Schauwen goes Kraus. Laced on the outside to attempt it and does. See that in the backdrop with Paul Jenkins now, the next car in front.
And this was at least not as intense fight as the first one before the pit cycle, so he can pick them off one by one, and Malechka's going to have to also take his time. But here comes that fight for third again, and this time they switch places. Brophy to the bottom, Blocker to the high side, and they still almost dead even.
Brophy nearly cleared, in fact. Not able to get by the front wing, though, of Blocker. This time tries to send Blocker hard on the gas. Blocker able to hold serve in the midst of the traffic for third.
Blocker has run 4 different lines in the past 3 laps. He's run the bottom, the low, middle, high, and then right on that wall. And the 88 is trying every other line to get around. This is great action between the 2 of them. But the biggest problem, they're losing Malechka, and there's Harrington, who fell back early on. He's now going to come back into the picture and make this a 3-way battle.
And there's a reason in turn that so many drivers love this racetrack, right? It's the size of about just under a mile with the multiple grooves, all surrounded by, yes, tranquil space, but also is a facility in turn that produces these types of battles no matter the type of car. As you see the traffic management come into play, there's a reason this has become one of the more hyped weekends in the IndyCar circuit when it comes to real-world competition here at the world's fastest short track.
Yeah, it just produces great action. You can find anywhere for grip. You can adjust your car to run any line. And it's a short track, but it plays into a driver's hands where you can find ways to capitalize. You can take a late apex, roar down the back straightaway, and get to the inside. It really is a driver's track, and you have to be strategic about every move you do. It really just creates for some great racing action. Here's Frazier barely cleaning Nunez. Nunez has been falling back. I mean, he had a great qualifying effort, but right now it just seems like that 14 does not have that speed on that outside line to hold it.
Nunez, I remember from last year at Iowa, didn't have the best of experiences in turn 2 in particular. The traffic's not been his friend. Pinheiro, though, has been able to cut through it like butter as he tries to slice his way past Adam Frazier. And there goes the butter knife to make the pass.
Well, the problem for that 56 is he's got 2 very tough customers ahead of him. and also 5 seconds to make up. But he's got a lot of clean air, however, so I think Pinheiro will get into a rhythm and hopefully nail out some good laps here before another pit cycle happens in the next 20 laps.
And that's going to be the major thing throughout the rest of this run. Keep in mind, for those just tuning in, Kraus has led 89 of the 93 completed laps so far in this one. And Ryan Otis is amongst those we are hearing now just having to come to the pit road recently. The 95 has jumped out of the race car. So some other drivers are picking up issues as the run progresses right around tire wear time.
Wonder if he also tagged the wall and maybe knocked the toe link in or knocked out that rear axle, because that has to be it, because he's been on pit road for about 3 minutes now, so lengthy repairs on that 95.
So we're at 28 cars running for those just tuning in as well. Here's a look at Kraus, the race leader. He's been unstoppable. How about 4 seconds up, and each time he's reached the traffic, he's taken half the time every other car has in the pack to clear by the traffic. This has been outrageously unbelievable.
It's what I said, like before we even got to the green, you had to be in the right place in the right time, and Kraus has just caught these cars just in a good position. Like here, he's going to catch Pinheiro, or Frazier, excuse me, and there's no one around Frazier. That's going to be an easy pass, easy does it. They stopped fighting in this mid-pack group just as Kraus got to them, making it easy to pick them off one by one. And unfortunately, Malechka, who's 4 seconds now behind, those groups close back up, and he gets more aero wash from those cars being closer together, and that just slows him down. So it's just right place, right time for Kraus, and a very, very smooth, consistent running, too. I haven't seen his lap time differ much, like 17.7, 17.8. It's been consistent every lap.
The season Kraus has put up so far can be in the conversation, Jonathan, for one of the greatest, if not the greatest, in Lionheart Series history. And this is a series, remember, where Adam Blocker won double-digit races before. Kraus is already just about at that point, just past the halfway point of the season.
And just think about the consistency, too, at each of the tracks. And that's, I think, what, when you think about a championship driver and a winning driver, it is consistency, and it is just maintaining focus. And Kraus, he can win on any of the circuits, but even if he's not up front winning, he's the only driver that's finished in the top 10 all season. Everyone else has either had issues or has been fighting amongst themselves. It's a competitive field in this series, and Kraus has just risen to the cream of the crop right now.
As indeed, and you see one of the drivers who was rising up early on the pylon just dropping 2 spots, it's worth noting. Kite Bommersbach in particular has struggled compared to the dominance we've seen from Kraus. And that's the tough thing for the second half of this race coming up, you'd have to think. The comers and goers, some of them may have been hoping for the strategy to get back into the game. The problem is, when the cautions don't come, how do you get back in this conversation?
You gotta maybe build a rocket ship, I think is the only actual answer, because you're not going to be able to unlap yourself around the 19 if anyone on the lead lap can pass the 19. So right now it's just going to be, you're going to be fighting for as much positions as you can get. The only one that's really fighting for their lives right now, I think, is Pinheiro, who's what, a second up the road from Kraus. He's going to have to nail out some banger laps to stay in front of that 19. But everyone else who's 1 lap down, if a caution comes out at this stage, you can't even take a wave around, I don't think, at this point. It's too close to a fuel window.
Yeah, especially with the pit stops expected within the next 15 laps from now. Of note, speaking of rocket ships, see that purple and white car that's right behind Matthias Kraus? That's Van de Sant. He's up 19 spots. He's one of the quickest cars in the midst of this traffic outside of Kraus.
He's been the only one that's been down in the 17.7s in the last lap. Well, I say that, and Malechka just bangs in a 17.5, so you know what? Commentator's curse comes at me quick. But he's also been 10 seconds behind Kraus the entire race. He has really not gained on Kraus, but he's picking off everyone else. I think someone's dropping. I think that's Nunez dropping like a...
That is for a pit stop. It is scheduled an early stop, worth noting. But here comes the send for Van de Sant. Just about floored it into 1 to get around Kraus. Does it work? Not quite yet.
Lap traffic giveth and lap traffic taketh away. There's just no room. I was about to say there's no room to make that pass, and somehow Van der Sande found room.
You talk about needing confidence. That was a lot of confidence with how deep that entry was compared to the others to set up that initial pass. As now Van der Sande up to a race-high 6th. Connor Harrington, the next driver up.
That's a lot of...
Go ahead.
Like I said, that's a lot of trust as well in Kraus, because like a second sooner, those two would have been in the wall.
Matthias Kraus also getting around the traffic as well, but you're right in terms of that. We'll say for Matthias Kraus, it's also been a solid spurt of momentum for this driver. Also was very strong to end off the first half of the season, keep in mind, with a couple good runs. Matthias Kraus looking to have another solid top 10 finish this season.
Yeah, and these are the kind of runs that help you build in a point standing and help you build, the respect around your community and really build momentum. And this is, again, a track where it is easy to find trouble, and Kraus has been in this midfield swarm basically the whole race, and he's not only survived but pick up places. So it's a really solid effort from that 59 today.
By the way, sorry, I misspoke. A top 10 was the point I think meant to say, because he was in the conversation for some top 10s, including at Indianapolis earlier this season. But in terms of the difficulty, absolutely. Speaking of difficulty, some more drivers having some difficult moves to try and set up. This is the battle for the first driver's lap down. Frazier, Bensi this time.
And Frazier's really like this middle groove, and Bensi's really like that low angles on both the corners. And now Bensi moving up the track, trying to get the draft. This is going to be the strategic part of making a move. He's got to have to time it right to go into turn 1. He wasn't quite close enough there, but a little bit too high right now for the 12, and that's going to spell disaster coming down the front straightaway.
Pit window is open. Keep in mind, as to the inside, Bensi not able to clear yet. Better run for Adam Frazier. Back for the send, though, is Caleb Bensi. The race first driver, this time with a huge send, clears by 3 car lengths by the exit. That's how quick he was.
Yeah, Frazier's, he's yelling at his crew chief. He needs to come in right now, because I think the tires are gone on that 12 machine. And there comes another car just round the outside. Easy does it. This is going to be an opportunity, I think, for the guys that are closer on that lap down margin, like Bensi and Frazier. If they want to come down and get fresh tires now, try and undercut and get back on the lead lap and hope.
That's the huge question mark with the window open. See if there's any indication yet from Frazier. Frazier, for reference, right now is 58 laps into the stint this time. No peel. There's Mike Rigney, comparison's sake. He's battling for 13th. Good solid recovery after the qualifying crash for Kinsella, keep in mind. Someone we've seen up in the broadcast booth on Race Spots, someone we've seen have some solid runs again this season. As the indication comes in for the 41, there it is.
I think with this window getting larger and larger too, it's going to make the strategy a lot more interesting, especially for the front runners, because now they have to consider these lapped cars that are coming out on fresh tires going to be blowing on by them. Van der Sande, the first one, I think, of the top 10 runners in the pit road.
Kraus amongst those signaling to come in. Harrington, should say, amongst those getting around Mike Rigney with the traffic. The difference some of the drivers have with the pace, upwards of half a second. We're running 17-second lap time still. The fall off not significant too much yet. Around 40 to 6/10 depending on the traffic. Amongst those peeling off the pylon, Blocker, Brophy, Kraus, Matthias Kraus, Pinheiro. This time around, caution flag is out. It's a spin. It's Wagner. Wagner has brought the first caution of the night out, it appears, as we're under yellow here in Iowa.
Adam Blocker and Joshua Chin may have had the most life-saving pit stop, I think, ever. Because...
And, yeah, this just got interesting.
I mean, we're going to have to see the timing as they cross the line. But there may only be 3 cars in the lead lap here.
So we'll have to see how the timing and scoring sorts this. Kraus, Malechka to the third, Harrington did not pit, so was a couple others. This is the caution. Wagner and that slippery apron.
Was that Kraus that went by on the inside of
Yes, it was. So Philip Kraus getting lucky with the slide up there, not involved with the contact with the wall initially seen there. And now the race has been flipped upside down. Our first caution coming up to nearly 100 to go. 3 cars on the lead lap. Everybody else looking like they may have to take the wave here if they're lucky.
I was going to say those lucky ducks are Blocker, Brophy, Chin, Matthias Kraus, Pinheiro, Van de Sant, Bomberback actually, and Alex Guyon. Alex Guyon with a good timing there as well. So those guys are going to get back on the lead lap, but are going to be right behind the 19 and the 44 and the 91. But those 3 are going to have 1 lap fresher rubber. I don't think it makes much of a difference.
We've had a speeding penalty. It's not a big one because 3 cars in the lead lap, but Philip Kraus, who has led almost every lap, ended up having a penalty, it appears, coming out and having to let everybody go after his pit exit. So Malechka the third is now the leader, Jonathan.
Now, is that just the end of the longest line for that penalty, or is that just the end of the lead lap line? Or the non-wave around line, I guess?
Well, that line is not as big as some of the other races, keep in mind, so there may be just Joshua Chin in between. We'll be able to straighten things up and sort things up in just a moment or so. We're under caution at Iowa. You're watching the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI here on RaceSpot and ESTV. We'll be back in just a moment.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI. 100 laps to go, this time by a grand total of 5 cars on the lead lap. Robert Malechka to the third after a speeding penalty by Philip Kraus is at the front of the field. We're back underway. And this whole entire race script has flipped upside down with the penalty for Kraus. Kraus has to pass 9 cars to get up to Connor Harrington and Robert Malechka to the third for the race lead.
Well, the good news is he's not going to be under threat from blocker, so at least he's in third place and is safe third place for now. But the problem is, a lot of these guys in front of him that are one lap down, they're still fighting for position, so it's not going to be easy for that 19.
Munstall's trying the outside. Pinheiro, who is Munstall's a lap down, battling with Tyler Craft for position and several others. Pinheiro, lightning quick, is on some of the fresher tires in this pack.
He was one that I thought would get the benefit of the caution, but I think the timing of it just did not work out in everyone's favor. It worked really well for Rigney and Taylor, who are now at the front of that field 6th and 7th, who had been kind of back in the 20s. But for some of those guys that were running up there, Van de Sant now down in 14th, Bomber back down in 15th, it's really shaken up that midfield.
Extremely shaken out this pack. Keep in mind the last of the lead lap, Blocker and Brophy, Pinheiro towards Craft. Tony Schowen drives to the back of Pinheiro. 4 wide as they crash into the inside wall, collecting Van de Sant, and there goes everybody else. Kinsella, Beard, several more slam on in as we're under caution.
That was the big one.
There were big ones in practice, and then there's that. Let's take a look as it's Pinheiro and Craft who are the triggers, and then here comes the rest of the dynamite. That is half the field collected.
Yeah, just lost that front steering, lost that rear wing. So there's really nothing I feel like Graf could do besides slam on the brakes. But even then, these are Indy cars that are flying down these straightaways. I don't know what else could have been done there to really avoid that from happening. And as soon as you saw a car going back up the track, Justin, like you knew it was going to be a big one.
That's the worst possible timing to have the big one, with everyone that packed together. And now, this race script, it's been lit on fire. After a green flag run of nearly 100 laps, we've had 2 cautions in 10, and we've gone from 28 running to about 18.
Yeah, and there were some guys with good days that are in there. Guyon, who, again, I just said benefited a lot from that caution, up in the top 10. Van der Sant, who had made that charge through the field. Pinheiro, who has been making a charge through the field. Kinsella, who's charging through the field. There was a lot of good race cars torn up in that. And
yeah,
I think Blocker's been on down pit road for a long time.
Was about to say, here's the list. Blocker, Wagner, Frazier, Bombers back, Kinsella, Newsom, Musselman, Pinheiro, Larkamp, Van de Sant, Callisto, Graf, Guyon, all mandatory repairs, most of which are from this craziness.
Oh yeah, you saw Blocker there. He just nowhere to go because Bomberback came down, and then that, I think it was I want to say the 08 of Guyon and the 97 of Callisto, like right underneath him. Things just happen so fast, especially in IndyCar, that it's just hard to react. And for Adam Blocker, I mean, that's a top 5 out the window.
That's the championship completely scrambled. Let's take a look at Bensie's view. He avoids first contact and avoids second, just barely.
So he has been down on pit road, but I'm wondering if he wants a change of pants just in case. Because that, like he was about, what, car length or 2? And there's an onboard view that we're going to see of this. And just up the racetrack, it was just nowhere for any of these guys to go. Great driving by Hudson to go to the bottom and avoid all this. That's, for any iRacers struggling safety rating and avoiding crashes, that's textbook. Slow down, find your opening, just hold your line.
It may be shorter to name the people who missed it in some cases. Matthias Kraus initially got towards the side pod of 1, dodged 2, and avoids the 3rd layer. Well, or almost.
I mean, compared to the others, I think he made out like a bandit because he was right in the mix to that, and he only had spun around and side pod damage. So he's still in the top 10. There's a lot of cars down the pit road. Yeah, you're right. It might be.
Yeah, Matt Taylor's just had the duck down for reference too. Ben seen a few more. That total we just mentioned around 18 is down to 12, maybe 13. That is the wreck of the season. By the way, Philip Kraus, Jason Brophy amongst those who pit this caution for tires. They did not get damage in the incident. That leaves Malechka III and Harrington on a few lap older tires at the head of the field.
And now there's some guys that have kind of moved up in the field. Moved up but shifted around. Now they're at the rear end of the 2 leaders. Now holding up hard chargers on fresh tires. So this is going to get interesting and fun very quickly.
It's time for the restart. Robert Malechka III and Connor Harrington lead the field. That has shrunk in half. We're back underway. And a perfect start for the top 2. A hornet's nest yet again for 3rd and 4th to deal with. See the top 2 nice and settled in. First side-by-sides amongst those. Jason Brophy. We're down to 4 on the lead lap.
Kraus is almost around all of them. I think he's getting around the last one now. I can't quite make it out who it is. I think it's the 00 of Rigney.
That's Josh Chin you're referring to in side-by-side, who is for position for 5th. You see back there. But here, you see this is right in front of Kraus. Mike Rigney, amongst those who survived the incident, who had been running in the teens, has a chance for a top 10 from that.
And he benefited from the timing of that first caution, too. And apologies for getting the purples confused. So Chin is darker than Kraus. I will remember that next time. But again, Rigney, and he's working Josh Chin a little bit, too. He stayed side by side for 2 laps. Really good run now for the 00, and a really good chance for some solid points.
Meanwhile, Philip Kraus drives by one of them. This is 2 seconds back of the leader, mind you, so Kraus has plenty of time to make up. He has made up a second, though, compared to what we just seen. He was 3 seconds back of the restart.
I think the good news now for at least Malechka and Harrington is now that the field is basically in half, it's going to be much easier, I think, to get through traffic. But the problem now is if those 2 start fighting each other, Kraus is going to get to them quickly.
Keep in mind, this is a teammate from private label Team Hype, so maybe a little bit more helpful here. There it is. There's the help, there's the slingshot, and that's how you gain 4/10 despite the traffic. Kraus now needs to gain 1.8 seconds to get up to Malechka III.
And 10-lap younger tires, not too much of a difference here at Iowa, but with clean air, when you're really relying a lot on these tires to go down into these corners, it can make a difference. Let's see where the lap times are going to be for this 1944 and 91. Last time around, he was just about a 10th faster than the 44, and now he is closing.
As this run starts to settle in, we're approaching midway to the fuel run. Of note, Adam Blocker has returned to the track in 16th. We also have one driver standing by currently in Tyler Graf, who was a part of the big one, part of the initial trigger, but he's standing by right now. Get the word with him in just a moment or so. Tyler, to start things simply, what happened?
I got ran over. I don't really know what else to say. I went into this race. I'm in conservation mode. I'm fuel map 5. I'm riding. I'm saving tires. We're extending the fuel stint, and we got exactly what we needed with the yellow there. And I thought I was making it pretty obvious that I was going to stick on the outside and just run my line and let him go like I had been. And I mean, I know it wasn't intentional. It's just really frustrating. To have that happen when you're just trying to let a race come to you, and the urgency wasn't there, and then you got people in the chat acting like they know how the race is running, and it's just frustrating.
So, in terms of the situation, too, I believe you mentioned you were also in the fuel save. How difficult was that mileage in the terms of the traffic then to make sure you were getting to the marks prior to that trouble?
I mean, we basically were just running a high line or running a wide line. It's not fuel efficient to just pull over when a guy's behind you, so you just give them the line to run, and when they're in the line, once they're next to you or once they're past you, you don't fight them back. But you can't just pull over like everybody expects. The guys running in the top 10 just expect us to throw ourselves off the racetrack. But we have our own race to run too. I think there needs to be some respect for our strategy as well, and we got the break we needed for our strategy to work. And I don't know, like I said, I'm frustrated. I know Pinheiro didn't try to do it, and it was obviously a mistake, and it's all good there. It's just frustrating to try to be a guy that's running a different strategy and just get used up all night.
Thank you very much for your time, Tower.
Thank you.
That's Tower Graf involved in the big one here at Iowa. We're down to the final 72 laps this time by. Currently, Malechka the third, Harrington, Phil Kraus, and Jason Brophy, your 4 drivers in the lead lap. The lead has maintained at about 1 second this run, though. Harrington, you're saying there's a chance to break through this time?
There's a chance. There's a big chance, a large chance, maybe, and even lead more laps. Because right now, Malechka is going to add to his lap tally. But right now, with not a lot of traffic, a way to manage the race, this could come to the 44. The problem he has, and the problem that both these two have, they're going to pit definitely off strategy of where the 19 and the 88 are, and they have to keep that in mind.
It's going to be very tricky in terms of the traffic to close things, especially since, while that sentence was being mentioned, Philip Kraus gained about 0.4 of a second on his teammate. So, just saying. It could get intriguing, this is what is really being said here, though. Because they can make it towards the end here. They're about 10 laps away from the green light on the fuel. It's the question mark, though, of how this could play out to win the race. Kraus is on 10-lap fresher tires, then your top 2, keep in mind.
And now is where we saw, at least for the tires, the struggling point was, you know, this 35 to 40 window was kind of that transition point. And once you get past 40, you're kind of hanging on. And now that Kraus is in the draft, he's going to have to try and find a way around. How much fight do you think Harrington puts up into this, knowing that if he fights him now, Malechka might pull away further?
That's the huge question. You see how the gears being played out by Kraus, trying the second line. Lap traffic is ahead as well. One car and Tony Schowen, who is involved in the trouble. Kraus to the inside. Harrington, plenty of space. Philip Kraus up to second.
I think it's a gentleman's move right there by Harrington. He knows that he's on fresher tires. It's not his strategy. He'll come back at him in due time. Or even, that 19 might pull him along to go catch Malechka.
That's going to be the intriguing thing if that becomes the case. 17.6 for Kraus last time by. The leader, 17.7. And Kraus is pushing so hard he just had the lift to avoid hitting the wall down at the exit of the corner.
And he still ran a time equal to Malechka. That's the craziest part.
To be great, you need to be consistent even when you make the little mistakes. You need to be able to be right back there to bounce back, right? And we've been seeing that all night long when it comes to Kraus, even in the traffic. The problem's going to be getting up to the defending race winner in Malechka the third, who's looking to become the first multi-race winner in the history of this track in the series.
Hey, you know, we talked about Harrington being the all-time lap leader, but Malechka led 158 laps last year at this track. So that 91 is also familiar with being out front here in Iowa. So this is not going to be easy for Kraus, especially as we get late into this run and there's not a lot of traffic to use his picks.
Green light for fuel expected next time by. See how the separation's starting to play out a little bit. The evening out point might be coming up with Kraus pushing so hard.
Yeah, he's probably used up that advantage by now, and he's even getting over that crossover window of when this tire is starting to fall off. Interesting now that we're in this fuel window. Who fires first of these three? Who is going to be the one with the draw, or does Brophy come down early and try and undercut?
Don't forget, Brophy's on the same strategy as Kraus in 4th position, but 3.7 seconds behind in that tealish yellow machine. He's out of the traffic, mind you. How do you play this out to be able to make that undercut work or overcut work, or whatever strategy you make work, to get 3 seconds on the track here?
Well, I think the good news, at least for Brophy and Kraus, if they pit here, they did pit a little bit earlier, they'll get a slightly shorter fuel fill, and that's about maybe a second's worth, maybe 2 seconds worth of time. That can make up the time. And then obviously you're on fresh rubber coming out. That's just qualifying laps, full throttle as much as you can, using those tires as much as you can. So it's going to be interesting to see who really blinks first and how long these drivers are willing to stretch it. Because also, if you stretch it longer, that means less fuel you have to fill up to get to the end.
That's the great point, too. The lighter the car, the quicker you're going to go, Jonathan.
Especially since now, I think everyone's kind of, like, they're all in this equilibrium a little bit. They've all kind of evened out. I think Maleshka ran a fantastic lap last time, like 17.4, but all three of them otherwise are 17.6s, 17.5s. So they're not really making up much ground. Who is making ground? That 00.
That's Mike Rigney trying a different line to reel back in Joshua Chin. Remember, Chin made the pass a little while ago in the 00 in the midst of traffic. Rigney, though, is looking better in that second line in 1 and 2, third line in 3 and 4. Sometimes the second to be able to try and get the pull by using the banking as a ramp.
And this is a great run for the 00, being able to capitalize on the caution in the big one and being in such a good position. Now he's showing like to be on pace with this 93, 33rd in points, not had the best season. He's a race winner. He's gotten a handful of top 5s, but this is a good way to start your second half by fighting with, the king of chins himself and looking for a solid top 10 or maybe even a top 5 finish.
Will be one of the better finishers for Rigney on the season. Be it not sure how he'd feel with the circumstances, it's still the chance for a top 10 at minimum, his first of the season, if not the top 5. Coming up 50 laps to go, as long as the car is kept clean, since there are just the 10 drivers 1 lap down or on the lead lap in the rest of this race. Everyone else 2 laps down on back, with some of those involved in the big one. Amongst those who have a chance here, mind you, for those, Taylor still in the top 10. We talked about how Taylor was having a horrible race at some points. He's still in 9th after surviving the trouble. Brian Beard survived the trouble, is in 7th. Bradley Sexton survived the trouble, is in 8th. Some potential season best or near season best runs in the pack, or good points hauls for some of the others here.
Especially those that were having rough days. Like we mentioned, Taylor, you could talk about him being like a super speedway expert, being able to climb through the field quickly, and that was not happening in that first half. So what did he do? He really extended those first 2 stints, and because he stayed out long in that second stint, he avoided the trouble, got the wave around, and then was in a good spot to avoid the big one the next time. So that's just right place, right time, and a good strategy for this 8 machine.
On board with Moser Racing, onboard camera, we're redefining sim racing. Go further, go faster with Moser Racing. Visit moserracing.com. You see right now, trying to size things up. Sexton is a little bit up the road. That is a bit of traffic for Taylor to deal with. Matthias Kraus, who at the rear wing change, is within range, though. Within the 1 second.
I am impressed that car does not have more damage. That 59. That was a round hitting into the side of Blocker. Bomberback, I think, got into him as well. And yet that 59 is still chugging along, like I said, like running lap times as fast as the leaders. So that was an amazing escape. And the first one to pull the trigger is the 19.
And that's an interesting play. 44 to go. And remember, Kraus had some of the freshest tires in the pack. He could have went further if he wanted to, Jonathan.
He could have, but now Malechka has to react. He was losing. Kraus was losing ground to Malechka. Malechka has the stronger late-run car. So the 91 reacting here, and now the 44 and the 88. We have to see what they'll do. Brophy closed up a lot of ground on Harrington the last lap.
So these drivers continue to battle it out. Meanwhile, this is again the battle between Chin and Rigney. First driver's a lap down currently with Harrington and Brophy yet to come down to pit for the time being. Nunez in front of them comes down to pit, hits the apron as Kraus tries to run to the bottom of the racetrack, gains a little bit of ground for the exit.
We have 4 different strategies among the 4 lead lap cars because we had Kraus, who pitted on that last caution, the first one to blink. Malechka, who stayed out, comes down. And now we have the 88 and the 44, both on opposite strategies, both trying to stay out. They're each trying to outthink one another, and I don't know who's gonna come out on top in this case.
Worth noting in the midst of that, about 2 to 3 seconds between Malechka the third and Kraus. More pit stops. Chin a little bit deeper on the entry this time. Maintain speed though. Will this work out for Chin to try and hold on to the 4th spot? Mind you, Brophy is working his way through the traffic. About 1 second behind Harrington. Brophy is closing. We look back at Malechka the third.
That Harrington's going to have to come down either this lap or the next lap because he's on lap 66, including caution laps on this stint. So he's running that 44 empty before the end of the stint. And I'm wondering if Brophy is going to do the same here.
It's going to be close. Harrington, mind you, with the cautions, has been able to stretch this run to 67 laps. There's the pit stop for Harrington. Brophy to the race lead for the first time tonight. That leaves just the one driver on the lead lap yet to pit in the entire field. Expecting Brophy to peel in shortly.
These are going to be the gaps that we're going to have to watch between Harrington, Kraus, and Malechka. Kraus didn't make up too much ground on Malechka when they initially came out, but now he's starting to reel him in slowly. It's a 1.3 gap between those two. We're going to have to see where this 44 comes out because it's going to be interesting.
Partly because that gap has gone down rapidly as there goes Harrington well behind Philip Kraus, in fact. So Harrington slow off the apron. Kraus, you mentioned it? He's coming. And he's coming quick. Last time by was a couple 100s quicker than Malechka the third. It's down to about 1.4, 1.5 seconds. That time nearly matching the time.
And the undercut proving to be, looks like the king strategy for Malechka and Kraus. They have 6 seconds on that 44 machine. Brophy's going to have to hope for a very quick stop, I think, in order to come out in this battle. On the bright side, Brophy's going to have the freshest rubber, so he'll be the fastest car on the track.
Brophy, you see up on the pylon, has ducked into the pit lane in the 88 machine. To close out the lead lap driver's pit window, you see in the split screen, Brophy trying to slow roll in. Now it gets interesting where Brophy cycles compared to the rest of the top 3 on net. Brophy just completed the stop, well behind Malechka the third and Kraus as expected. Going to be close to Harrington though. So it's a 2-car battle, I should say, for the race lead. And it is closing rapidly yet again. It's down to 1.1 seconds once more for the final 30 to go next time by.
And kudos to Harrington and Brophy for trying that overcut and hoping that the lighter car would bang out the quick laps, but the fresh rubber advantage of Malechka and Kraus proved supreme, and now it is, as you mentioned, a 2-horse race.
And here's the tough thing. What do you do if you're Philip to be able to retake the lead? Because remember, he had been the dominant car when he was in the clean air. Doesn't have that advantage anymore. And that's the tough thing. He's been on the back foot since that caution flag period where he had the speeding with just the 3 cars in the lead lap and having to start at the back of at the tail end of the line as a result.
And he doesn't have a couple other things that would that were playing into his opponent's favor earlier in the race when he was leading. He doesn't have a lot of traffic out there. There's only 15 cars running at race speed right now on the track. Blocker's been in and out of pit road several times trying to hold his position. So he doesn't have a lot of pick opportunities. Tire wear, I don't think is going to be much of a factor because they're on the same tire life.
Oh, and the traffic's not playing friendly. That's Matthias Kraus, who is not letting him go easily. Running the exact same line Kraus wants to run. In fact, this is costing Kraus time.
And that 59's in the freshest rubber, too, because he was the last car down pit road. So it's not like that 59 is slow.
Here's the question. How does this play out now for Malechka the third? Because Matthias Kraus is about to gain up to try and unlap himself by 1 lap.
I mean, it might be worth just letting him go, but you have to let him go in a way that maximizes at least your speed still, because if you let him go and that 19 machine is lurking, end up like Sergio Perez in the French Grand Prix last weekend and end up sleeping and losing the lead. So he's got to be smart about this, Malechka. He can't fight it too much, and he fought it a lot.
Near contact with the race leader, coming at 23 to go. Matthias Kraus this time choosing the outside line. Will Malechka the third give the space? Not easily, but does.
That was probably the best move he could have made right there. Just give him the outside line, use the draft now and try and pull away. He only lost 0.2. That's an important 0.2. The 19's now in range to get a little bit of that draft on these straightaways.
It's within a second. Dirty air being fed now to the race leader. Now will that traffic give it to Philip Kraus? 20 to go next time by. Kraus trying to march his way back to Malechka the third, the defending winner at this track, compared to the dominating driver of the season. Which driver will get it is the question with 20 to go.
And again, this is a heavyweight fight here because you have one driver who's won all the oval races this season, or most of them, that number 19, and the defending race winner who's led over 100 laps at this track and knows how to lead at this track. So if they get close to each other, this is going to get tasty. But right now, that 19 needs to focus on trying to close the gap. He's got some traffic to play with now, but it's not a lot.
So it's Gonzalez Nunez, the first of that traffic. Nunez has been cordial throughout the race. There's the space by Luis Gonzalez Nunez for the race leader. See how Kraus plays that traffic in turn. Now fed some of the aero watch for the next lap or so before he gets to the 14.
And that was just a bad place for Malechka to catch that slower car right on the exit where you really want to maximize the draft and the speed. And now Kraus was able to use that as a draft and go into turn 1 and 2 and clear him. So that's another 0.2 loss. And this is an exciting fight between two guys looking for a good result.
Battle for 7th. Matt Taylor. He's been able to pass Mike Rigney, who is on a decline here. Taylor on the overcut, making things work. Bradley Sexton, Matthias Kraus also in this pack, all for position.
Now, if I was the leaders, this is the pack that I am praying to all of the things above. Do not take each other out, because this is the pack that is most likely going to trigger that. These fights for these top 10 positions among drivers that really just need a good day.
Oh, and did we mention this is in front of the race leaders too? Funny how that works. Side by side, again in the next cars behind them, Matthias Kraus, Bradley Sexton for 9th and 10th position now. Robert Malechka the third picking up the aero wash from both of them as they scrap again.
Kraus is the fastest of that bunch with the fresher rubber on Sexton and Rigney, but they're falling quick, and Philip Kraus is catching quick. It's 0.3 now.
Oh, near contact, Kraus able to clear on by Matthias Kraus, now with the crossover Bradley Sexton. Robert Malechka the third now within 5 car lengths of the back and forth battle. Big bumble from Sexton, coming to 11 laps to go for the race leader. Here's a look on board. This is the power slide ignition driver, Robert Malechka III. Coming at 10 to go this time, looking to close it out. When the traffic is not budging, the lead is down to nearly half a second. 10 to go.
Yeah, the biggest trauma, I think, for Malechka is when they catch that 0-0. Rigney is struggling right now for tire wear, and he really needs to clear his 26.
Not able to clear this time. That's a 10th right there. Kraus now within 4/10. Malechka III tries to sail it to get around the traffic and does. Here comes the private label team hype machine. Eight to go.
Now it's easier for a pass by Sexton, or at least a pass on Sexton, because he's going to get aero wash and dirty here now from Malechka. So Kraus is going to have a much easier time getting around, and there he goes.
Had to shift through the gears to make sure he didn't sail into the wall. 7 to go. Back to about half a second nearly. 2 more cars to play a factor in. It's that battle between Rigney and Matthias Kraus. Matthias Kraus did clear by Rigney, though, on the fresher rubber. Is there enough time, or is there any chance Kraus can slide up here is the question, with 5 to go this time, coming up to the point of no return.
The key here is going to be Rigney in that 0-0. How quickly can Malechka clear him in order to put someone in between him and that 19? Because now it looks like he's struggling a little bit for pace too, because that's a 10th in that corner just alone.
Malechka III, lots of aero wash. Kraus changing up the line to close. 4 to go. Here comes Kraus to close up with the draft.
But not making any impressions now on Rigney. I think the tires are starting to fall away. We're at that crossover point now. 40 laps into a run.
Coming to 2 to go. Still 4:10, still not able to close up fully. 2 laps to go from Iowa Speedway. Can Kraus pull anything out to get up to Malechka III?
Drove it in hard that time. He's trying to find something, but he's just not gaining anywhere right now. I think Malechka may have it covered.
Of note, Jason Brophy had a crash on his own. No caution. White flag is out. Final lap from Iowa. Malechka III looking to hold on. Philip Kraus looking to come back. One more chance for Kraus. Way too far back for the chance. Malechka III will close it out and win the Next Level Racing Iowa 200 presented by GSI. Philip Kraus in second. Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin amongst the top 4. And what a finish and what a battle between Malechka III and Philip Kraus.
Yeah, there may not have been a lot of side-by-side, but what Malechka just did was hard, because that was a lot of pressure from that 19 and the pressure of those lap cars, especially with the tires wearing out. They were slower than the end of that lap traffic, and it was a very, very calculated and well-thought-out victory, I think, for Malechka in that final stint.
And Malechka III just sitting on the start and finish line currently. It's part of the celebration here. Robert Malechka III, keep in mind, the first 2-time winner at this facility, the first back-to-back winner at this racetrack. A big win for Malechka III in what has been an up-and-down season. It's his first victory of 2022. And as Robert Malechka III celebrates with the fireworks in the background, let's take a look here. SimRace247.com unofficial results. Malechka III picks up the victory half a second over Philip Kraus. Kraus, remember, the speeding penalty lost him the lead. He led the most laps, though, with 121. Connor Harrington led just 7 laps, but still picked up the top 3. A 2-3-4 for private label team hype, with purples running. Joshua Chin in 4th. Brian Beard finished in 5th. with Matt Taylor, Matthias Kraus, Mike Rigney, Bradley Sexton, Caleb Bensi the top 10. Matt Houston, after being involved in some of the trouble early and having an EOL, still finished in 11th. Jason Brophy, after a crash late down the back straightaway, finished in 12th. Andrew Marquez in 13th. Luis Gonzalez Nunez was the last finisher at the checkered flag. Tony Schowen finished in 15th tonight, with Adam Blocker 16th. Kite Bombers back in 17th, with Stefan Larkamp in 18th. Alexander Van de Sant finishes where his car number is, 96 laps down, 19th. Adrian Pinheiro, the top 20. Behind them, 21st, Alex Guillon. And then Howard Graf, also in the big one as part of the trigger in 22nd. AJ Musselman and Andrew Kinsella, the top 24. Adam Frazier, Lionel Callisto finished 25th and 26th. Matt Wagner, the first caution trigger, finished 27th. Paul Jenkins, Ryan Otis, James Brandt rounded out the top 30. And rounding out the field, Aaron Morgan, Alexis Newsom with a crash under green, and Michael Goodman, remember, with the meatball flag after contact with the wall early on, round out the finishing order. Robert Wetschke III picking up the fastest lap and picking up the W tonight. That brings us to our post-race show, brought to you by HyperX, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. It's time to dive straight into HyperX Victory Lane, where Robert Molechka III picks up the victory with 93 laps led, the first multi-time winner at this track in series history, and the first two-time in a row winner here at Iowa. Robert Molechka III now joining us here in the booth. Robert, you've done it. You become the first multi-winner at Iowa. Not the way you may have running it, but you have won back-to-back here.
Yeah, honestly, it's a big shock to me. Usually I'm a kind of 2 mile, 1.5 mile specialist, but to get on the short tracks of Iowa back-to-back years, yeah, I mean, this track's, really fun to drive. Like they say in real life, it's multi-groove, the tires wear, you're slipping and sliding, and great win. And unfortunate what happened to Phil. We were talking about that the whole race. We knew that was going to happen most likely, and it very well did. So great job to everyone on Power Slide. We put in a lot of work this week. Unfortunate, I think everyone except me didn't get the finish they deserve, but nonetheless, I got the win and could have taken home today.
Interesting. May I ask why you thought that was going to happen on that pit exit during the caution?
Yeah, just with how, if it goes green and you get, 15, 20 cars a lap down, when people are trying to catch up to the pace car, the pit exit is often closed. And yes, we all wanted pole, but with that possibility maybe happening, you couldn't really see where the line was per se. And luckily, with being two pit stalls back, I was able to kind of react and see, pit lane's closed, so I was able to slow down while Phil just went right through.
A great point to bring up, absolutely, and that adds a bit more context to the situation, indeed, on that exit. But now, you start off the second half of the season with momentum. How do you carry that momentum forward is the huge question, because you entered tonight top 10 in the points. Only up from here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it other times I've been here, but if you can just, continuously click off top fives in this league, you're in a really, really good shape, because if one guy has a bad day, you can go up 2-3 spots. I mean, realistically, no one's probably going to catch Phil unless he has some major misfortune. We're all kind of racing for P2, maybe P3. But yeah, just be consistent. Don't have any major incidents, and hopefully keep climbing into standings in the second half of the season.
Thank you very much for the time.
Yep, thank you, Justin.
That's Robert Molechka III from HyperX Victory Lane, picking up the victory tonight by just about half a second over Philip Kraus. Philip Kraus currently is amongst those standing by, as these drivers had a plentiful battle as well. Philip, you nearly closed back up to Malechka the third after what our understanding, as explained by Malechka the third's point, was a pit road closed exit penalty. Talk us through that run to the finish.
Yeah, it was a closed pit exit. The red light's right in front of me, so I was just an idiot and blew right through it. But yeah, it was a really good job by Rob to get that win there. Lap cars almost let me get to him, but it's been a long time coming for Rob, so congrats to him. He drove a really good race and capitalized on my mistake. But yeah, it was definitely difficult to try and close up to him on that last run. I was working the weight tracker a lot higher than I had the whole race, and I almost lost it a few times. But since the point situation is what it is, I could basically afford to go for a win or bin. But sadly, neither of those happened, so I guess it's not as exciting.
What did you need to go different in turn outside of the penalty to try and close up and have a shot at the 91? Because we've talked about how difficult it is with the aero wash compared to the clean air. What did you need to do to have a shot at Malechka the third late here?
There was a lap car that came out of the pits about 20 laps to go or something on fresh tires, which cost me a lot of tire life and just held me up a few tenths. And other than that, just a few bad calls on lane choice. Sometimes I'd pick high and there'd be a car there, middle car there, low car there. But yeah, I just couldn't get the clean air on the nose when I needed to, and ended up killing the right front a bit more than I should have done.
Well, you're not able to build a house tonight at Iowa, but the next race is Road America. What will it take to build a house at the National Park of Speed?
Honestly, I don't know. It depends on what Andrew puts together for us and what the strategy ends up looking like. But I'm really looking forward to Road America. It's my home race and one of my favorite tracks just of all time, not just on the sim. But yeah, really looking forward to Road America. It's going to be a blast.
A chance for 2 houses in Wisconsin then, potentially. Congratulations in second.
Yep, cheers.
Rouse, second spot tonight. Connor Harrington rounded out your top 3 in the running order. Harrington had a chance to break the snide of being the all-time laps leader entering tonight. Was in the conversation. Connor, how are you feeling about the third, though, on the podium tonight?
Yeah, I feel really good to get a third place tonight. Truthfully, I was scared that we were either going to be caught up in a massive wreck or we were just not going to have the pace. It turned out to be a little bit of the second. Phil and Rob were definitely the class of the field tonight, and I really didn't have much in terms of comfort with the setup. I was pretty aggressive on the right front tire, which made my late run pace not great, but a really good point today for our entire team in the team championship. Obviously, Phil's having a season that will probably never be beaten. We're only like halfway through the season, but the run he has been on lately is just it's been insane, and I'm just really proud of him, and I'm really happy to be his teammate. But yeah, a good race for us tonight.
Good race indeed, and you mentioned the difficulty with the tire. How tricky was that to make sure you remember to not overpush with the right front, because that was a talking point with the traffic tonight?
Yeah, I don't know. It was really tough to get comfortable with the setup. It was just so loose to start with all the rubber that went down the racetrack and just the crazy crosswind we had in turn 3 and 4. So, it was just really tough. Like, you'd almost have to over punish the right front tire to get it to kind of all balance itself out, and then it would sort of fall away. And I just wasn't aggressive enough on the tools tonight to keep the pace. But we brought it home with all 4 corners on it. We didn't get involved in a crash, and we'll get out of Iowa with a P3 and some good points. This race can be a little bit of a lottery, especially with the yellow flag. So I'm happy we were able to capitalize on that.
Well, as mentioned with Philip Kraus in particular, Wisconsin is the state where Road America lies, and that's up next. Your thoughts on there, especially with what could happen on the road courses?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think last season there, I actually managed to sneak a pole away from Blocker, which was kind of cool. It's a really great racetrack, really fun. Strategy's always interesting, especially with the shortened fuel cell. So we'll see how much of a strategy window we get to play with, and especially with the new tire. There's some ebbs and flows with which tire is faster at what point in the run. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. We've had really good pace on the road courses this year, and we've had some good results when we haven't gotten caught up in incidents. So, just keep looking to plug away at those good finishes. Maybe we can make our way up to the top 3 in points.
Congratulations once again on the run tonight.
Yep, thanks everybody.
That's Connor Harrington rounding out your top 3. I'd like to thank Kim, Philip Kraus, Robert Molechka III for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on RaceSpot and ESTV. Jonathan, your final thoughts as tonight turned out to be a blender, and the roulette that can be the strategies was kind of knocked over. The entire table was, at least, by the big one just past halfway.
And it flipped the race on its head. We heard there was a penalty during that even pit sequence that sent the dominating car back in the pack of Philip Kraus, and he was trying to chase down Molechka. But even with all that, and even though we lost half the field, it was still a great ending and a great race to see. Differing strategies, differing driving, going high, going low, trying to find any way to make up time. I thought this was a great race, and again, I am sorry for all those guys that were caught up in the big one, because a lot of them had great days and were putting on a fantastic show.
As mentioned, the next race, keep in mind, Road America is going to be an intriguing one. That should be a fun one for the Sim Race 24/7 GP of Road America, presented by Moser Racing. You can catch that August the 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, as we get ready to go racing Wisconsin style. But on that note, after an eventful run here at Iowa, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage, as well as thank our presenting sponsors for this series, starting with the title sponsor for the IndyCar Series, Butt Kicker. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine red line. Tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. By HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud9 of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. By Next Level Racing, an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer, to create the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com. By Moser Racing, who is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology made from high-end materials, Moser Racing develops the precision you need to reach victory lane. And by Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. And not just those names, but the names you just seen as well, that make things tick here at the Lionheart Racing Series. To find out more, go to LionheartRacingSeries.com. But it's time to say goodbye from Iowa. Be sure to follow along with the action throughout social media, whether on Lionheart Series, whether on ESTV, or whether on RaceSpot, to follow along with future action. For Jonathan Burke, for our producer Tyler Maxson, I'm Justin Prince saying so long, enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching the Next Level Racing Iowa 200, presented by GSI. Congratulations to Robert Molechka III, your race winner at Iowa.